you should know this definition. What it means, high neuroactivity. In physiology, we have different parts of central neuron system, and previously we tell about these parts: spinal cortex, medulla oblongata, pons, midbrain, diencephalon, brain cortex. And high neuroactivity, it's those functions which are realized with help of brain cortex. Highest level in central neuron system, top level, and only those functions which could not realized without brain cortex, named high neuroactivity. And you may see some examples of high neuroactivity. Some of them we will discuss today, some of them continue on next lesson, but it's many types. It's speech, it's cognition, it's voluntary movements, it's memory, emotions, and interesting, even sleep in our body could not realized without brain cortex. For regulation physiological sleep, we need normal activity of brain cortex. That's why all these functions belong to high neuroactivity. And first of all, we tell about emotions, because it's a well-known function. You all know about emotions, you all feel these emotions, but you have troubles on exams when we ask you tell about emotions, and even definition may be hard for students. That's why please memorize or record this definition. Emotion, it's a subjective reaction, experience, which based on psychophysiological expressions, biological reaction, memory, and current mental state. So for realizing emotions, we need complex activity of our central neuron system, of our brain. And we have many types of emotions. You know these examples, many names and different types of emotions. But in general, all this subjective reaction, we may divide on two main groups. Oh no, tell me please, which two groups of emotions you know? So please.
Happy and sad.
But happy and sad, it's examples, and groups
Expressed,
is more common.
Groups of expressed and controlled.
Tell me please, do you like happy? You want to
Yes,
be
sir.
happy?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
You want to be sad?
No.
Of course not.
No. So two main groups, it's good emotions and bad emotions. Good, those emotions which pleasure for you, and bad, which you don't like. That's all, it's very simple. And we have many examples of good and bad emotions. But nowadays we have other classifications of emotions. And next classification, which divide not by pleasure, but by biological significance. We have basic emotions and secondary or social emotions. Basic emotions you may find on this slide. It's from Japan theater, several masks which in theater demonstrate emotion. And it was interesting that during many years, these masks used like universal samples of biological emotions. Why universal? Persons around the world can easily recognize this emotion. Different countries, different ages, and I think you may recognize emotions in this picture too. For example, first one in right upper corner. What's sorry, left upper corner? What's this emotion mean?
Sad.
Sadness. Yes. Next one.
Excitement.
Surprise. Yes, very good. Next one.
Happy.
Happiness. Yes.
Angry.
Angry.
Actually, no. This is not angry.
Annoyed.
It's disgust. And next one is angry.
Nervous. Angry, yes.
Yes. And last one?
Fear.
Fear. Yes.
Yes.
So we perform a small experiment which demonstrate that you correctly recognize almost all emotions. Yeah? And these emotions have biological reason. They important for surviving. If you see on somebody face fear, for example, you will increase your sympathetic neuron system activity. You will be more accurate. You will find some dangers around you. Why this fear happened? Maybe you're in danger. And opposite, if you feel on person's face happiness, you may relax. And these emotions can change our behavior, can help us for surviving. That's why it's highly important for correct distinguish all these kinds of emotions. That's why we tell about biological or universal types of emotions. And these biological emotions are common for all humans, as I say, around the world. Bad recognition of these emotions may lead to problems if you in dangerous, but you could not quick react on this dangerous. It's bad for you. But it's interesting that emotions have many theories about mechanism for producing and uh, physiological role. Because we have emotions not only like external reaction, we have internal reactions associated with emotion. For example, external reaction of fear or angry associated with changed your inner organ activity, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, increased respiratory rate, increased muscle tone, and many other changes. And during many years in physiologists was many theories. What's first, what's second? If you see some faces with bad emotions, you changed your inner organs activity. If you changed your facial expression, only after this you will change your inner organs activity. Or you changed two types of activity together, external and internal emotion. But in nowadays quite popular theory of James Lange, who said that in many cases, in many situations, firstly changed inner organs activity, and only after this changed external emotions, changed facial expression. So in some cases, your body try to analyze if you feel increased heartbeats, if you feel increased respiratory rate, if you feel shivering, increased muscle tone, your brain cortex analyzed all these situations and say, oh, I'm in fear. I need demonstrate some strong emotions because it may be dangerous for me. That's why in nowadays some cases we may say cognitive uh, mechanism of emotions. We analyzed some changes in our body, and even without dangerous, these changes may lead to some strong emotions like panic attack, for example. Person may be in normal situation without any dangerous, but suddenly increased heart rate lead to panic attack, lead to fear, and this is cognitive mechanism of emotion. Okay, previously I tell you about biological group of emotions. Second one, social group of emotions. And we have many additional types of emotions which we may analyze mostly with help of facial recognition. And for social emotions, very important role of cultural influences, because some emotions may easily recognized only persons who lived in this territory, in this culture. For example, Eastern and Western cultures have different types of demonstration emotions. And person who arrived from other country may have problems for good recognize these social emotions. Next, division of emotions. Mostly it's about external emotions, expression of emotions, which you used for recognized emotions from other persons. In these two pictures, you may find true emotions and false emotions. Tell me, please, which one is true emotions, which one is false?
One is true.
But both pictures is happiness. Which one is true emotion?
First one.
The upper one.
The first one.
First one. Yes. You see, you all correctly recognized true emotion. And if person demonstrate, he don't feel happiness, but he tried to demonstrate these emotions. You work like a lie detector and recognize them. And how you do this, how your brain distinguish different types, true and false emotion. It's interesting that your brain react only on two groups of muscles for analyzed happiness. It's muscles of your mouth, which make smile, yes, and second one, muscles orbicularis oculi, which give ability for slightly contract your eyes and make some leads around the eye. And it's biological principle. Again, it's universal and most amount of persons around the world can analyze contraction of these two groups of muscles. And if you didn't see contraction of orbicularis oculi, you say this is false emotion. In second picture, you didn't see that eyes are closed and lids near the eyes not present. And this smile, true smile, which associate with true emotion, named smile of Duchenne. And when we find true emotions, it's smile of Duchenne. And this is experiment which provided by Duchenne. And interesting that he beaten with electricity person's muscles for find which muscles lead to contraction like in true emotion. And this experiment was quite interesting. They associate with our next topic because electricity may be very painful, and if you feel pain, you will not be happy. You could not smile. That's why for this experiment, Duchenne find patient with very rare disease, patient which didn't feel pain, and that's why he can smile when his muscles contract due to electricity. But about pain we will tell on next lessons. And now you should memorize about main groups, main types of emotions, and first of all it's divided on universal emotion, which we used for demonstrate our emotions, and recognized emotions from other persons, which need for survival. It's happiness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, sadness. And second one is culture specific, not universal emotions, which vary, may be different in different cultures, but give ability for fine control of recognition. Like in this sample, for example, it's many subtypes of emotion, different levels of positive and negative emotions. But interpretation of these emotions may vary, as I said previously, in many cultures and depend from previous experience. That's why these social emotions help you better analyze other persons, but it's not universal. It's interesting that emotions, it's very strong motivator. And this experiment demonstrates one role of emotions, motivation. Our emotions, especially biological emotions, universal, it's very strong motivators. And this experiment, which named Visual Cliff, demonstrate this. What this experiment demonstrates? You may see on this picture young baby, and on the table he looked like Cliff. And when baby and some animals came to this cliff, they stopped. It's dangerous. Nobody want to fall down, and only in one situation baby may continue moving, in situation when mother demonstrate good emotion. And this experiment demonstrate that emotions may be even stronger than our fear. It's dangerous from falling cliff is very strong in all animals, in humans, and dogs and cats and rats. All these subjects afraid from this cliff, and it's very strong, but only a good emotion which demonstrate by other person may stop this fear and give ability, give motivation for continual movement. That's why second function of emotions, I previously told about them, it's communication. For better communication, we need recognize facial expressions from other persons, and we need demonstrate our own emotions with external way. We have internal way for emotions, our inner organs, and external way, our facial expression. And this facial expression of emotions need for communicate with other person. If person are happy, you will want to communicate with them. If person is angry, I think you will not want to communicate. We will try to escape from this person. And this is facial recognition. And next type of emotion and next functional role of emotion, it's surviving. Emotions need for surviving, and some emotions which associate with very strong stimulus may associate not only with cortex, but with many subcortical regions. For example, fear. And for provide fear, we used, as you see in this picture, not only brain cortex, but subcortical regions, especially thalamus opticus and amygdala. Amygdala, it's part of limbic system, subcortical region. And stimulation of this region lead to very strong negative emotions like fear. This stimulation may take place with some visual experience with some subjects. For example, for almost all persons, very strong stimul for amygdala, it's snakes. Monkeys and humans afraid snakes and try move away from this subject. That's why if stimul came to your visual cortex, they stimulate subcortical regions like amygdala, and you feel a very strong sympathetic response. Your heart rate increased, your muscle tone increased, and you feel fear. In many cases, it's unconsciousness reaction. Some persons who every day contact with snakes, with insects, with other subjects can decrease this fear, can not feel them. But without this daily control, almost all persons will feel fear as a result of stimulation amygdala. This fear are highly important for surviving. You know, snakes, insects, some other animals may be poisoned, and it's better escape from dangers. And in experiments, when some animals block amygdala, they didn't feel fear, and vice versa. When they stimulate amygdala, they escape even without some reasons for fear. We have centers for other emotions. For example, we have centers for pleasure emotion. Again, these centers involve not only cortex but subcortical regions in hypothalamus. And when stimulation of these subcortical regions take place, animals feel pleasure and want to stimulate again and again. And if animals have ability for this stimulation, they may die because they make self-stimulation. They didn't want to do anything else. They want only press button for stimulate electrodes and for feel pleasure. But in humans' body, same types of self-stimulating behavior may take place in some narcomanies and in social networks. If you watch TikTok or something else, your centers in hypothalamus slightly stimulate. That's why it's so impressive, so nasty for many persons, and they could not stop and want to look in TikTok, Instagram, or something else again and again. And this is example of other experiment. Again, experiment which demonstrate localization of emotion. So, some of emotions, like I previously told you, we find localization. And in nowadays, we know which cortical and subcortical regions realized different types of emotions. This experiment was very interesting because it's very impressive. You may see in this picture, it's corrida. It's very popular in Hispania because scientists who discovered rage was born in Hispania, Delgado, and he wait when a bull feel angry and try to kill him, and then he stimulate centers in bull's brain with help of electrodes. You may see in this picture. He pressed the button and a radio interface stimulate centers in limbic system. Mostly it's again hypothalamus, and these centers stop angry activity, and bull instantly move away. So after these experiments, and nowadays we know about some centers of emotions, like I previously told you, which localized not only in cortex but in subcortical regions. And these subcortical regions associate in a virtual compartment which named limbic system. They involved amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, thalamus, and all these regions involved in emotional activity. Some centers are specific only for bad emotions, like amygdala. Some centers may associate with good and with bad emotions, like hypothalamus, for example. And very interesting that one part of limbic system is hippocampus. But hippocampus mostly involved in memorizing process. I tell you about this later. Hippocampus is center for memory, and when some emotions activate cortex, subcortical regions, limbic system activated, and hippocampus, like part of limbic system, will activate it too. By other way, we may say that emotions associate with memorizing. Every time when you feel strong emotions, good or bad, you will activate your hippocampus and you memorize this situation. And this is very good, and it's next function of emotion. Change our behavior in future. If you today see a snake or bull or some other dangerous, you try to escape from this dangerous. But in same moment, your hippocampus start memorized all steps which you do for escape. And if you survive, your ability for escaping was success. Next time when you meet same dangerous, your memory give you way for escape. That's why emotions associate with memory, and it's good for change our behavior in future. And if person didn't feel emotions, it's very bad. One example of this is Kluver-Bucy syndrome. It's situation when animal or human didn't have normal worked amygdala. After destroy amygdala by stroke or by surgical operation, for example, person didn't feel fear, and it's very bad because fear we need for surviving. We need escape from dangerous in environment. We need escape from dangerous in food, and without fear, person may die when they don't try to escape from dangerous or don't try to remove bad food, for example. That's why emotions which change our behavior, universal biological emotions, is very important. Emotions associate with endocrine system. You remember previously I told that one region which associate with emotions is hypothalamus, and hypothalamus is center not only for emotions but for endocrine activity, and together with some emotional response, with facial expressions, stimulation of hypothalamus lead to stimulate some endocrine activity and hormones production. First of all, it's adrenal gland stimulation and adrenal gland hormones production. Hormones like epinephrine, norepinephrine, they activate every moment when a person feels stress, feels some strong emotion, and actually it's not important good or bad emotions, as happiness, as angry, may lead to sympathetic response, and more stronger response realized with common combining activity from neuron system and from endocrine system, but this synchronizing two responses together, it's a function of our emotion. We have several other chemical substances which associate with emotions, and nowadays they associate with different specific emotional responses. These chemical substances take part in our brain. They work like neurotransmitters, and abnormal increased or decreased level of neurotransmitters due to traumas, fatigue, inflammations, or something else may lead to change our emotions and may lead to change our behavior. For example, we have neurotransmitter dopamine. They work in our brain, especially in frontal lobe, in basal ganglia, for control of our movement, for control of our behavior, motivation, and dopamine during stimulate all these types of activity lead to stimulate limbic system and lead to provide strong good emotions. If a level of dopamine is very high in our brain, we feel pleasure. That's why all substances, all drugs which lead to increased level of dopamine in our brain, like narcotics, we may see heroin, for example, lead to addictions. It's very hard to remove these addictions because they lead to good emotions, and we all like good emotions. You previously told me you want to be happiness but don't want to be sad. And opposite situation, decreased level of dopamine in our brain may be signal of bad emotions, and persons with decreased level of dopamine try with help of self-stimulation, with provocation, some dangerous situations, increased activity of limbic system and increased level of dopamine. Many persons who like skating, base jumping, and many other risk kinds of sport have a low level of dopamine in this brain. Next kind of neurotransmitter is serotonin. They again associate with emotion, and mostly low level of serotonin lead to sadness, lead to depression. Again, we have some reasons for increased level of serotonin, some drugs, some medicines like antidepressants, for example, increased level of serotonin, and a person didn't feel sadness. That's why in nowadays we know about this association between neurotransmitters and emotions, and try regulate our moods for prevent some imbalance, for prevent some very bad emotional state. Next, function of emotions. Emotions work like detectors, and this function was well known during many 100 years. And nowadays we used for lie detectors measuring inner organs activity. Previously, I told you that facial recognition associated with change cardiac activity, respiratory activity, and so on. And when we record with medical devices this activity, we may find and measure intensity of emotions. And if person in normal situation have very strong emotion, it's usually associated with fear. He afraid something. And it's interesting that one of first lie detectors was very simple. They don't need any modern devices for measuring inner organ activity. It's rice, and in ancient times in India, in China, was discovered method for distinguish persons who lie or do something bad. Persons need take rice and swallow them. In ancient time, I think if person could not swallow it, he do something bad and he lie. In many situations, it's true, because if person lie and afraid something, his strong emotions lead to decreased salivation in oral cavity, and that's why person could not swallow in rice or something else. But in some situations, these tests lead to false reaction, to error. Because persons may afraid not only in situations when they do something bad. It may be only the type of reaction in all situations, it's type of psychology. That's why in nowadays we didn't use emotions for, lie detector with measuring emotions. It's not absolute. And next function of emotions, emotions decreased our cognition. And now we will play a game for check your cognition ability. This test was discovered in Princeton by psychologists, and it's very easy mental task for make a choice. You see on this picture the train which could not stop. Something broke in this train, and on railways, persons who didn't see this train and could not escape. You in center, imagine that this is you, and you again could not stop train, but you may change the way. If train will not change the way, they will kill 4 persons. If you changed way for this train, they will kill 1 person. Tell me, please, what you prefer, what you will do in this situation?
The train left 1 person is better than 4 persons.
Yes, you make a logical task, and you say for yourself, all situations is bad, but if 1 person killed, it's not so bad like 4 persons. That's why I think all of you select this choice. Okay, and next task, again train, again you in center, you see, and for stop train and prevent kill 4 persons, you need push this fat guy which blocked railway. If you push them, of course you kill them, but these 4 persons will survive. If you didn't push them, 4 persons will die. What do you prefer?
Also, I will push it. Push he.
You will push, and all students will do this.
Can't we shout and make them clear the way?
Girls, again, please.
Can't we shout and make them clear the way?
You can't do this. Anybody else?
Why doesn't he throw himself instead of throwing another man?
But I
Don't
think
understand.
if I put them, also the 4 people will die also because the train would not stop.
Anybody else? Okay, so you see in this experiment, not all students have same decision. Some change their decision and say, I will not push that. But in cognition, task the same. But when you push some person, it's more emotional. You kill them, and your limbic system, your emotions will cry, stop, you're not a killer, you're a good person, you could not do this. And in some situations in our daily activity, our emotions may change our behavior, and as a result, emotional person became not very good cognition. So as a result, we see what's these emotions. It's a subjective result of many objective situations like external stimulus, our inner organs activity, our memory, our cognition, and emotions we need for many functions, for change our behavior, for escaping, for memorizing, for recognizing. And emotions quite universal, but some all persons easily distinguish. Some, like social emotions, for distinguish you need studying during long period of time. Next type of high nervous activity, it's memory. And memory, you see again definition similar to emotions. Many students have problems with definition on exams, and good definition you may write or memorize them. It's ability to store and restore some information in those moments when you need them. So if you could not store some information in your memory, it's bad memory. If you could not restore information in those situations when you need them, again, it's bad memory. And in physiology, we divide memory on 2 or 3 mechanisms. Most popular, it's two types of memory: short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory, like you may see in definition, it's memory which take place in our brain during short period of time. And long-term memory, its ability for memorizing and restoring information during long period of time and usually during all our life. Mechanisms of short and long-term memory is different. For short-term memory, main mechanism is re-entry or circulation. You may see in this picture, neurons connect in neural circuits, and electrical signals may circulate again and again. And during all time when impulses circulate in these circuits, you may restore information in your brain. With this type of memory, for example, you memorized somebody names, phone numbers, something what you just now read, and so on. But all this information easily destroyed in your brain if they don't transmit in long-term memory. Transmission in long-term memory named consolidation of memory, and for consolidation we need producing a new biological structures like new synapses between neurons, new receptors in the synapses which give ability for better response on weak stimulus, and so on. These processes not so fast. They require many hours and in some cases many days. That's why long-term memory don't produced instantly. And usually we transform information from our short-term memory to our long-term memory. Next subdivisions, next classification of memory, it's other two groups. You may see on slide, it's explicit and implicit memory. But again, it's a physiological division because explicit memory, ability for memorize some abstract facts, situations, like some mathematics rule, geographics rule. You all know these rules, but it's abstract. All these facts, events, associate with activation specific regions in brain. It's temporal lobe and hippocampus and temporal lobe. If this region destroyed, your ability for memorize some abstract information dramatically decreased and even may disappear. That's why persons after stroke, after trauma, after seizures, whose hippocampus was destroyed, have inability to consolidate. They memorize some information with short-term memory, but could not recall this information after long period of time. And implicit memory, it's memory on your previous behavior, like ability for running, cycling, swimming, memory on some emotional responses. All these types of memory for provide need activate specific centers in brain. For example, for some skills, you need activate centers which send impulses to your skeletal muscle. For memorized emotions, you need activate centers in limbic system, like previously I told you, hippocampus, amygdala. That's why we divide memory on explicit and implicit. These types of memory associate with different regions in brain. For explicit memory, we need hippocampus. For implicit memory, we may use only cortical regions or control your muscles, your emotions, and even persons with damaged hippocampus, but ability for voluntary control of muscles still have normal skills and procedural memory. Next type of high neuroactivity, it's cognition. And again, some troubles with definition. What's this cognition? Usually, cognition it's ability for recognizing, analyzing, and for change your behavior with help of previous stimulus. And cognition may be different types. It may be consciousness and unconsciousness cognition. It may be concretic or abstract cognition. And most important, most valuable for this type of high nervous activity, that first of all, cognition localized in brain cortex. That's why we tell about high nervous activity. But we have different regions for different types of cognition. Similar to emotions, similar to memory, we have no only one center for cognition. For unconsciousness cognition, we used same places in brain cortex like for emotions, for example. That's why these types of cognition depend from our emotional activity. Consciousness or abstract cognition mostly involve prefrontal cortex, its frontal lobe in your brain. And again, some disorders in these regions may lead to decreased abstract cognition, but involuntary cognition may still normal. And next, what you should know about emotions, it's different types of high nervous activity. What it means? Very good sample which demonstrate types of high nervous activity. It's pictures which was drawn by Bidstrup. This is one sample of this picture. And this sample demonstrates different reactions on same accident. You may see this accident, some person sitting on your head, and as a result, reaction may be different. Some persons have very strong emotional reaction. Some persons was neutral. Some persons have negative emotions. And in daily activity, you may find all these types of responses on some similar situation. First of all, this told us that reactions may be different, and in different persons, reactions not same in similar situations. But why reactions not same? In ancient times, Hippocrates tell about 4 liquids in our body, and he divide all types of behavior on choleric, sanguinic, phlegmatic, and melancholic behavior. In nowadays, of course, we know that we have no 4 liquids, and we have no persons without blood, but with bile in body, and vice versa. And nowadays, we say that different types of reactions on same stimulus depend from intensity of propagation stimulus in brain. By other way, how many action potentials came from sensory regions to your brain, and how many emotional centers in brain will activate by this stimulus, how fast this happens. This depends from many situations. First of all, it's level amount of neurotransmitters. Previously, I told you some neurotransmitters, especially which associate with emotions, may lead to increasing or decreasing strength of response on some external and internal stimuli. Amount of receptors for these neurotransmitters, amount of enzymes which breaking down these neurotransmitters. All these situations, they may be even inborn, they may depend from genes, lead to different reactions. Of course, some reactions may change during your life, you modificate your behavior. That's why in nowadays we didn't say that high neuroactivity it's something constant. They may change during your life, but in every time, in every moment, your brain have only some specific level of enzymes, receptors, neurotransmitters, some specific level of signals which produced in response on some stimulus. That's why in every moment you have only one of type of high neuroactivity. This theory, association of types of high neuroactivity with brain, with our intensity of responses, intensity of neural responses, firstly was developed by Ivan Pavlov. That's why it's in nowadays types of high neuroactivity, not by Hippocrates, but by Pavlov. He say that all neural responses may be strong, weak, may be balanced and unbalanced. And actually, as I told you previously, in every moment, your reactions may be one of these four types: strong, balanced, strong, unbalanced, weak, and so on. Next type of high neuroactivity is speech. Again, you all know about this type of high neuroactivity. But speech, it's two types of speech, two types of activity. We can produce speech, like what I do now, and we can recognize speech, what you do now. For these two types of activity, we use different regions in our brain cortex. You may see in this picture main regions, it's Broca's area and Wernicke's area. This is centers for motor speech and for sensory speech. Motor speech localized in frontal lobe, sensory speech localized in temporal lobe. And some disorders in brain may be partial, may lead to damage to one of these centers, and as a result, person may decreased ability for producing or for receiving and analyzing speech. For example, in this slide, you may find what a person will say after a damaged center of Broca. Center of Broca is center for motor speech. And when this center is damaged, person's speech became not fluent. It's not speech, it may be some words, parts of phrases, and for persons it's very hard to say something. His muscles in oral cavity, in tongue, don't work properly due to problems in broadcast center in brain cortex. Vice versa, if problems lead to damaged center of Wernicke, again, speech is damaged, and this disorder is named aphasia Wernicke. Again, you may see how a person with this type of damage will tell you about something. And you may see the speech became fluent, but not logical, not have some ideas. It's many words, but as a result, a person may say during long period of time and say nothing. Interesting that patients with these types of disorders may not understand that speech is broken, because for sensory speech, vice versa, we use not only for producing speech, but for occurring speech. If we occurring our own speech like normal, and somebody tell us that we say something abnormal, we could not prove it. We think that it's okay, our speech still normal, but result may be damage, like in this sample of Wernicke's aphasia. And last type of high neuroactivity which we discussed today, it's sleep. As I told you previously, sleep again is high neuroactivity because for normal sleep we used our brain cortex, And a method which proved it was EEG, with help of EEG recording. In previous century, we demonstrate that our cortical activity changed during sleep, and this strong association between cortical activity and sleep give us ability to say that sleep is again type of high nervous activity. Sleep have different stages. When we lie down and try to sleep, first of all, our EEG demonstrate slowing of wake. This is a sample of awakened EEG, and you may find typical activity. They named alpha waves on this EEG. It's regular high amplitude activity. The frequency between 8 and 12 Hz. But during starting sleep, during getting to sleep, our frequency of waves decreased, became slow, and we demonstrate when this typical activity changed, that person start non-REM stage of sleep. First, it's non-REM stage, and every night when you fell in sleep, first of all, you fell in non-REM stage of sleep. Non-REM, it's not a rapid eye movement. I told you about REM a bit later, but in this stage, your brain slowed down the activity, and muscle tone decreased, inner organs activity decreased, all your body functions decreased or slowed down. Only digestive function may slightly increase during this stage of sleep. In non-REM stage, we have several levels, usually with about 4 levels, and they have different main frequencies. All of them have less frequent compared to awakened state, but during night frequency decreased and decreased and decreased. On this picture, you may find third stage of sleep when present very slow activity delta waves, the frequency less than 4 Hz, and in this period person fell in deep sleep. He didn't react on any stimulus, but interesting that after 1 hour or 90 minutes after person starts sleeping, his brain became active. On this slide, you may find increasing frequency of brain activity, and frequency became even more than during awakened state. Beta waves present and frequency of beta waves higher than in awakened state. It's about 14 Hz and even more. This period is quite short. It may be 10 or 15 minutes. And during this time, person's body changed activity, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, increased muscle tone, oxygen consumption, and increased brain activity. This stage is named REM stage of sleep because during this stage, eyeballs start move. Your lids are closed, but you may see under the lids, eyeballs move. That's why we tell about REM stage of sleep. Usually, this stage is most interesting for those who like dreaming. Most amount of dreams we can see in this period of sleep. But after short period of time, as I told you previously, it may be 15 minutes, REM stage changed to non-REM stage of sleep, and again all periods changed one by one. First, second, third non-REM stages of sleep, and then again REM stage of sleep. That's why during our physiological sleep at night, every hour or 90 minutes or 2 hours, it may vary, your brain decreased your activity, then suddenly increased, again decreased. All these periods named cycles, and during night we have 4, 6 cycles. It depends from. And was very interesting finding a role of sleep. Why we need sleep? This question I will check on exams your answers, because those students who preparing by Wikipedia and ancient books tell me on exams we need sleep for restoration, and this is ancient theory. And in nowadays we say it's not main role of sleep. For restoration, for removing muscle fatigue, we didn't need so many sleep. More popular in nowadays other theories of sleep. It's sleep like hibernation, because during sleep our brain consume less amount of energy, and we can save energy for future activity with these hibernatic stages. And consolidation theory, which say that during a REM stage of sleep, our brain cortex transfer information from short-term memory to long-term, and this consolidation take place only during sleep. That's why if you will not have good sleep at night, you will not have good memory. Your information will not transfer from short-term to long-term. They will disappear. This is more actual, more modern theories of sleep, and please don't forget about this on exams. And we have many mechanisms for sleep in nowadays. Previously we talked about only one mechanism. It was endocrine, level of glucose in blood, or neural mechanisms like decreased sensitivity, fatigue in brain. But in nowadays we have more mechanisms, and all these mechanisms associate with each other. Most popular in nowadays mechanisms which involve several neurotransmitters, neuropeptides in our brain. And these neurotransmitters have negative correlation in our brain. You may see in this slide what it means, negative correlation. When increased level of one neurotransmitter, for example, hypocretin, other one, for example, GABA, have decreased level, and vice versa. Increased level of GABA associate with decreased level of hypocretin. And we have many additional neuropeptides. It's only like example, because in nowadays in this negative correlations we add melatonin, orexin, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and many other. Most important from all these neurotransmitters which need for good sleep, it's melatonin and orexin. They give us ability for regulate and switch our level of activity between awakened state and sleep. Again, it's negative correlation. When we have a high level of melatonin, it leads to a switch off our brain, and we want to fall asleep. During sleep, decreased level of melatonin, increased level of serotonin, and it leads to switch on, and our brain awaken, sleep is finished. That's why this relationship is very important. And in nowadays, many drugs which used for regulation person's sleep affect on these mechanisms. They may affect on GABA, on melatonin, And then, nowadays discovered some pills which will stimulate orexin, which control speed of switching between awakened state and asleep. With high level of orexin, person's switch became normal, but low level of orexin lead to narcolepsy when person fell asleep instantly. And this is very bad. It decreased social activity of person. Dreams, which we can see during our sleep, usually it's many types of dreams. It may be true dreams, sleep through, and many other samples. But most amount of these dreams occurring during REM stage of sleep, and dreams associated with activity of our hippocampus for consolidation of memory, information, activate hippocampus, and activate our previous senses, previous memory. That's why during sleep we can memorize some of our previous facts, events, and if they correlate with next day behavior, we say this is true dream, but actually it's nothing true. It's only a stochastic correlation between dreams and our daily activity. That's all for today. Thank you.